If you've been looking at camera sliders recently, or if you've been wondering whether or not you need one at all, then this is the video for you. Because I'm going to show you a very reasonably priced motorized camera slider that's definitely worth checking out. Hello, welcome to the channel. If you've not been here before, my name's Sam and I do lots of gear reviews and tutorials as well. So if you want to see more of this sort of stuff, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to get notified of new videos when I upload them. I'm also on Instagram, so if you head over there, you'll see behind the scenes, announcements and bloopers as well. So head over to the account and I'll see you there. Right, so when I was first looking for a camera slider, the only brands I could find were Rhino slider or Edelkrone. Is it Edelkrone? Edelkrone? I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Anyway, all the options were really expensive and I couldn't justify spending that much for how little I'd be using it really. But they seemed to be the only options available. So I very nearly went ahead and spent over £1,000, don't tell me mum, on a camera slider. But luckily, after a few months of digging and not giving up, I managed to find a brand called GVM, and I couldn't believe the price when I first saw it, and it was just a really affordable alternative to the bigger names. So I'm so glad I stumbled across this. And you know, your first thoughts are, is it going to do half the stuff that you want it to do? Are you compromising on quality? So within this video, I want to share with you my thoughts after having used it for quite a while now, and hopefully provide you with some insight if you're looking at one of the affordable alternatives of a motorized slider, and maybe I'll be able to help you with your decision process. So I've actually had this for a while now, over a year. It's the GVM 80cm or 31 inch, is it 31 inch? Yes, 31 inch motorized camera slider. I just need to mention that it's not the newest version because I have had it for a while, so there may be some updated features and slight differences to the model I'm showing you here today. But it doesn't matter, because the point is, can you save money and still get something that's totally usable? I mean, obviously when you do spend those higher amounts, you're gonna get a build quality that's going to last you a lot longer, especially if you're using these things every day in professional environments. Can one of these get the job done at a consumer level? So this model has recently been replaced with the GP-80QD, which is very similar to this model from what I can see. Just a couple of differences, but neewer do one very similar to this. In fact, it's pretty much exactly the same. However, it is controlled via an app on your phone, so that's something worth looking at. Neewer always make good stuff. I did a review on one of their soft boxes in a video. I'll link it up here so you can go and have a look at that one. So while I can't directly compare some of the affordable versions to the Rhino slider or something more expensive in that range, what I can do is go through some of the features that this does have and give you my thoughts and opinions on it. So that's what I'm going to do. And I can also tell you whether or not it's worth the price. Spoiler alert, it is. So a few people have actually asked me recently, why would you need a slider if you've got a gimbal? Can you not get the same movement with a gimbal? Well, actually, I'm going to say no, you can't. You can get similar, obviously, but having a slider ensures you've got a consistently straight and smooth movement. Whereas if you try and get that sideways motion with a gimbal, what usually happens is you can move anywhere with a gimbal. You can move up and down and forwards and backwards. And if you're using manual focus especially, it's very difficult to keep the object or the subject, whatever it is you're filming, in focus. And that's what's great about having a slider. You can get the camera to the position you need it, set your focus, and then when it slides, you know your subject is going to be perfectly in focus when it reaches that point. And you know, you could use autofocus with a gimbal, but that's besides the point really. There's no way you can get a smoother movement by doing handheld or with a gimbal unless you've got, unless you're on like a skateboard or something, but you can still move up and down with the gimbal. I think I'm rambling. In fact, while I'm doing this, GVM have just mentioned me in a comment. Look at this. Right, let's have a look at what you get with the slider. One of the things that I really like that companies do is include a case, especially a padded case. It's just so much better having a dedicated case for your equipment to keep it safe than it is just slinging it in a normal bag or some sort of box that you find. So this actually comes with a padded case with all the necessary compartments for the accessories and the slider itself. So there we go. Look at that, how handy is that? So what you get, the remote. It's a nice and simple design, only a few buttons on there. You've got the on and off switch underneath. You plug a cable that is provided into the top, and you can also mount this onto the side of your tripod or on a separate stand so you don't have to hold it, or you can even hook it on somewhere. Just like that. Comes with a battery. Here's the cable that goes from the unit itself to the remote. The cable itself is this long. I don't know how long it is. I'd say it's about 1.5 meters, maybe a tiny bit less, but it's plenty long enough really, because I'm usually stood by the camera anyway, making sure the framing's okay, so this is plenty long enough personally. People have also asked the question, don't sliders take a long time to set up? And they take longer to set up than just having a camera, but the results that you get from using a slider, especially a motorized slider, are always worth that extra couple of minutes setting up. And I'm so glad I've got this tool, because they just add so much to the shot itself. So small price to pay having to set something up for a couple of minutes to achieve really good, interesting shots. In fact, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a timer on and show you how long it takes to set this up. You ready? 3, 2, 1, go. First of all, I'm gonna take this plate off. I don't know why I'm rushing, it feels like a race, but it's not. So I'm going to attach the plate to the underside of the slider itself. I've got my tripod set up here. Add this to that. Tighten this. I'm going to pop this battery into there. Plug this in, plug that in. And put my extra tripod head on top for extra versatility when filming. There we go. All that's left to do now is to switch on the unit, and we're going to set our in and out points. So start. Sorry, I forgot to, there's a lesson. Undo this before, so this just locks it in so that it doesn't slide about while it's in the case. Anyway, it's embarrassing. Right, setting our start point. So all you do is scroll across and then press stop when you got it to the start point, press enter, and then set the end point and go the other way. Stop, enter, there we go. Stop. 3 minutes 26 that took. You know, I know what it's like. Sometimes you've got to be really quick on a shoot and you don't have the time to mess about with stuff, but it's always worth the extra 3 minutes just to set up this camera slider for the type of shots that you can get potentially. Let me just move this down a little bit. So I don't think that's long at all, really. At all. For what you get, it's well worth it. So as you can see, I've got this set up on my tripod, and it's worth noting that because there can be quite a lot of weight either side, make sure that you use a very sturdy tripod because it's got to hold the weight. Now what you can do is actually, to make sure that the slider doesn't tip over, you can put either a tripod underneath this bit here, and there's a screw there to mount the tripod underneath, or a light stand, something like that, and another one on the other side to make sure that you don't get any bowing either side, because it's quite a lot of weight, and you'll see that it does actually start to bend down. Let me go the other way and see if you can see it. It will naturally dip down because of the weight. So that is a way to combat it. Also, I did see there's actually a company that makes supporting arms that go from your tripod legs up to the edges of the slider to support either side. What I'll do is I'll put the company name up here so you can go and check them out. Great idea. I might even consider getting some myself. What I've got here is I've got the slider on top of a tripod head, my main tripod head, and then instead of just mounting the camera straight to the slider here, I've actually added another tripod head just for extra movement, because I could use this bottom tripod head to tilt or pan, and that's great, that's a good starting point. But I might want to have one movement for the slider and then a separate movement for the camera itself. So for example, I might want the camera to go across and then move. So I've got that flexibility there to have both. Now obviously this does add a little bit more weight to your setup that could put strain on the motors itself. Now these things do have a weight capacity, and you want to be careful really, because what I've noticed is when I use my camera with the cage and my monitor on top, it's quite a heavy setup, especially with the extra tripod head on top as well. And I have experienced some issues where the motors start to struggle a little bit. What I've also noticed as well is if I have the camera facing this way with my EOS R and the heavy lens on top of there as well, it does tend to struggle. So keep your camera setup as light as possible when you're using a slider. When the weight seems to be distributed over this way, it's all right, but when it's over this way, there seems to be an issue. I think it must have something to do with these wheels here. So yeah, be careful with how you're using that. You can obviously also use it at an angle, but be careful there as well, because there is a weight limit that the motors can handle. If you're putting strain on those motors, it's just not very good for it. So just bear that in mind. Keep your camera set up as light as possible. I also noticed that the more weight you've got on top of the slider, the slower it goes naturally. The battery life of this is incredible. I've never worried, like sometimes with a drone or a camera battery or microphone batteries, stuff like that, I've often worried, oh, am I draining the batteries? Am I going to need to recharge mid-shoot? With this, I've never worried at all. And what I like about it is there's on the display, there's a little battery indicator here. So it tells you how much battery you've got left. I really like that. But this is great. I've never worried about losing power with this so far. I mean, I always charge everything before a shoot anyway and bring spare batteries, but the battery life is incredible, and I've been testing this last week really, and I've not even for hours, and I've not even had to recharge it. I'm still just under 50%, so it's great for battery life. Right, let me explain how to set this up. It's really simple. You've got this remote control, simple display to work with, and all we do is you can choose your mode. So you can go on manual mode or auto mode. Basically, manual mode is you control the slider left and right, and you just press and hold the buttons. If you let go, it comes to a nice smooth stop. Let go, look at that, nice smooth stop. So that's manual mode. You can alter the speed by pressing the up and down arrows from 100%, that's the speed of 100%, all the way down to 1%, and this is what 1% is like. That's 1%. You've also got a time-lapse mode, and I've not actually used it in time-lapse mode. I might have to give it a go actually, but you basically have to set the interval and match it up with your camera, and what it does is it moves in those intervals. So if you've got your camera set up to take a picture every second, the slider will move and stop every second. So it'll move, stop, take a picture, move, stop, take a picture, and you have to sync it up with your camera. It all depends how you do these things. I don't really do a lot of time-lapse stuff, so apologies that I can't give you more insight with that. But it's got the feature on it, it's worth giving it a go. Okay, and the other mode we've got here is auto mode. Now, auto mode is a really good feature, especially if you're just a one-man show and you're on your own at a shoot, but you've got two cameras, so you can set the slider up with one camera and let it run and do its own thing while you man another camera. So it's an ideal automated little system. So you set your start and end points where you want the camera to start and end, and then go on auto loop or auto stop. So if you just want one movement with the camera from left to right, for example, you can set it so that it would stop when it gets to the end, or you can press auto loop and it would keep going from side to side. Perfect if you're doing like an interview or a documentary style talking head video. So get the camera running, and you can also change the speed while it's going. So I'm gonna just bump that up a little bit. There we go. And you'll see that it goes from left to right, comes to a nice natural stop itself, and then goes the other way. And it's gonna do the same thing again, gets to the end point, slowly starts coming back. Look at that. It's incredible. It's so good. Another thing is the noise. Motors can be quite noisy, so I just want to test how loud this is. In the room, you can hear it, definitely. I don't know if you can hear it now. Can you hear it? It definitely makes some strange noise when it gets to the end. This is typically further away from your microphone. Hang on, I would say that you don't really have to worry about the microphone picking up this noise. It's quiet enough. I've got a light in the room as well, which you can hear the fan noise in, and also my Ninja 5 monitor. The fan in that's quite noisy as well. I've never heard any of these things through this microphone anyway, because it's close enough to me, as you can see, to pick anything like that up. So I don't worry about that sort of thing. If it was crazy loud, then I'd say that that's a problem. The other thing I noticed, slight downside, is this little plate on top here. This thing, there's a little bit of wiggle room in it. You can't get it to stay perfectly still. So if you set your frame up perfectly like that, then you walk past and you knock the camera, that's it, game over. You're gonna have to start again. So I don't like that. There's a little bit of movement in there that's not ideal. But again, for the price, I can live with that. Right, so really cool feature. Now this is something that I really wanted in a camera slider, the pan or parallax movement. What you get on some motorized sliders is a little box that you can program to move itself on top, and you usually buy that separately on top of the slider itself. This is slightly different. What you've got is a rod running through the middle of the two main rails, and either side you've got a little clamp, little screw clamp, and a little measure a bit here. And what you do is unscrew these and move that rod. As you can see now, I'm moving it, and it swivels the camera. And so what you do is you set this up so that the camera stays pointing at the subject or the object throughout the whole length of the slide movement, and the camera will pan itself. Watch this. How cool is that? So if you've got this set up on a nice slow time lapse, and then you've got the slider movement, and you've got that little parallax movement as well, you've got some really creative shots there. So that's a great feature. I think they've found a really good way of having that movement and keeping the cost down just by having this rail in the middle and something underneath the unit itself that spins that plate. So I think it's a really good idea to keep the cost down rather than having another mechanical or electronical unit. If you do it the other way, you get a pan effect. So now the camera goes that way. It's really cool. It's so good. And the beauty of it is, I've had a manual slider before and they're great, but you just can't, as a human being, you cannot be perfectly smooth. You're gonna get slight jitters and jolts in your movements. You know, some people use bits of string and rope and pull it, and use an arm to pull it round and stuff, but you just can't replace mechanical slider. And for the price, it's a no-brainer. Do you ever have a Scalextric as a kid? Well, it's not quite the same, but similar. Can't just watch it all day. If we turn this plate the other way, we can now mount the slider this way, and then we can get a forward and backwards motion. So we've got the option there going side to side or forward and backwards. So I didn't mention earlier, it's this carbon fibre. The main rails are carbon fibre, so it's super lightweight. It feels like carrying hardly anything in that little padded case. So it's not too much of a hindrance to carry with you as an extra piece of gear on a shoot. It's the 80cm version. You can get longer ones. I find that this is plenty good enough for what I need it for. If you do go longer though, you probably do need to get the support arms or carry 2 tripods or light stands with you to make sure that you're not getting that imbalance of weight either side. But yeah, super lightweight and portable. So what do I think? What's the difference between the £300 slider or a £1,000 slider? Well, obviously I think you're probably going to get better motor performance, stronger motors, and probably build quality, durability when you're spending in the higher range. But with this, if you're just like a consumer or just starting out, this price range is it's perfect. It's so impressive what you get for the price, because you're still getting essentially very, very similar results to spending like 3 or 4 times as much essentially. So if you're in the market for something like this, a motorized slider, I cannot recommend the GVM or the neewer sliders enough. I've had this for over 1.5 years now, and it's not let me down at all. It's perfect. It is perfect. It's great. Not much more to say, to be honest. Some of you may be thinking, yeah, but for not much extra, I could get a gimbal. But they're 2 totally separate pieces of equipment. There's things you can do on a gimbal that you can't do with this, and there's things that you can do with this that you definitely can't do on a gimbal. So think of them as 2 separate things. Obviously, there's going to be one. If you can only afford one thing at the moment, you just got to go with what you need the most. What type of stuff are you filming? What do you need? So yeah, I think that's it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more gear reviews and tutorials. I hope this video has been helpful. If you did find it helpful, please give it a like. Share it with your friends. What do you think to this slider? Are you thinking about it? Got any questions? Let me know in the comments down below and I will reply to you as soon as I can. And yeah, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. There's plenty more to come, so see you then. All right, I need to get a thumbnail.